This is the voice of freedom. We are not one voice. We are many. We are your voice. But we can only be effective if you use your voice. Your voice. This is the voice of freedom. We will not hide from the truth. We will ask the hard questions until we are sure we have the truth. Welcome to the voice of freedom, where your voice will never be silenced.
Can't hear. Sorry, mate. Can anybody hear me? Can anyone hear me? Okay, great. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Carl. Okay, Carl's going to drop out and drop back in. I think that's what the field signals were saying. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another action-packed technical demonstration by, what is it, AFP, Asia? We don't know. All the slime out there that don't want you to hear anything other than the well, how would you call it? The authorized message from the Department of Truth. Okay, what do we got this week? I'm not sure what Carl wants to chat about, but while we're here, and we'll be talking about this later, so let's do this now. Child protection in this country has been a corrupted and very sick joke for a long, long time. This woman here, Hetty Johnson, I'll just see if I can get that so it doesn't reflect. I don't know if you can see that properly. Oh, there you go. Hetty Johnson, in the best interest of the child. Now, Hetty Johnson's an absolute Australian champion. She's brilliant. This is her book. In 1997, I think, she set up an organization called Bravehearts. And Bravehearts is an organization dedicated to the protection of children. And so Hetty organized that. She left the organization, I think, last year, 2021, having set up committed 25 years to the cause, set up a succession plan, and as she says, the organization's all grown up and is under great leadership and doing a good thing. So whilst we're raising a lot of issues in relation to child protection, raising awareness in relation to child protection, and we'll be talking about that tonight in relation to a conversation A1 Chief of Staff and my lovely bride had with the West Australian Government Department earlier this week in response to our attempts to get working with children's checks for everybody in A1. We'll be raising that. But please, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to know about Hetty Johnson. Buy the book, read the book, and do as much as you can to support those that are actually doing genuinely good work in this country to protect the kids. Because as you and I know, it's all about the kids. If the kids aren't safe, nothing else matters. We'll get the other things done too, but the kids have got to come first. So please get out, get the book, read the book, and please do what you can. Now, when I say do what you can, remember that you are more powerful than you think. You send 100,000 letters, 100,000 people send in a letter each. That terrifies the politicians. It terrifies the public servants. It terrifies everybody, and they are terrified. They are genuinely scared because they know that they're now being called to account. There's worse news for them on the way, and most of them haven't got the memo yet, but worse news is on the way. So please, in relation to any concerns, write to your local members first, because you actually pay them, And if you want to CC find out who the chief executive of the department is, because you're going to guarantee that they're like the red hats. They just do what they're told, even if they know the system they're implementing or administering is crooked. You can bet that these are the red hats that I've been speaking about. That'll just do what they're told, and they don't care if the system works or not. They don't care whether kids get raped or not. All they care about is keeping their job and making sure nobody calls them out. So, ladies and gentlemen, in relation to any child dangers that you are aware of or you have heard about, and just write and say, you're my local member. I've heard stories. Please investigate these stories. Please do something. Please help the kids. And once again, get a hold of Hetty Johnson's book. She's an absolute Australian champion, retired now from Bravehearts. But check out Bravehearts, and if you've got a few spare shekels in your kitty, make a donation, because that is one genuinely powerful voice for children in Australia. They could use the money. They've got a Herculean task to do what very few organisations are actually doing out there. So make a donation to Bravehearts and get Hetty Johnson's book. Read the story, read the truth, get involved, and let's save the kids. Okay, Carl's still not here, so now it's the Ricardo Bosi show. Alrighty, let's move on. Since we're talking about child protection and Carl's not here, let's go on. Earlier this week, after we made a comment about the working with children's checks out of Western Australia. Now, Australia One believes that everybody in this organisation should have a working with children's check for obvious bloody reasons. But more specifically, because we're an organisation where we intend to have engagement with young people under 18, for example, teaching about the Constitution, teaching about politics and the rest of it. Hello, wait.
Oh, Rick, my God. Can you hear me now?
Yes, mate, Carl. Welcome to the Ricardo Bosi show, the voice of freedom. On the line, ladies and gentlemen, Carl Liebold. Carl, what have you got for us this week?
Oh, mate, I am so... I've got a great report for you on Telstra. Unfortunately, nothing great to report. The bastards. Oh, God. I'm very sorry, everybody. Unbelievable. So I'm now connected via a belt, a piece of wire, and a metal coat hanger to a railing off the roof. With a bit of luck, the mobile phone that it's plugged into will stay connected long enough for us to actually get this shit show on the road. So my apologies to you, Ricardo. I'm sorry about this. There's not much I can do about it, but it is the way of things. So my apologies.
If this is the worst thing that happens today, it's been a great day. You're going to be kidding me. Just so you're aware, I gave the audience a quick shot of Hetty Johnson in the best interest of the child. She set up an organisation called Bravehearts. She retired last year. And I asked them if they've got a few spare cents in their wallet to send a donation to Bravehearts. Bravehearts.org.au, I think, is the website. So check it out.
Yep. Wonderful. Hetty's been a big campaigner. It comes from up this way, I think, too, Queensland way. Right. So, good to have her. Well, she's been a great campaigner for a long time, and anything to help kids out, I'm right behind, as you well know. So, mate, been a big week. Where do we begin? I mean, really, where do we begin? All right, let's start outside of Australia. Roe versus Wade. It's an interesting time in America at the moment. 26 states are up in arms, the rest not so much. A lot of people here in Australia are concerned that the decision may have implications here in Australia too. What's your feelings on the whole thing so far?
Well, there's many ways to look at this, and there are implications for Oz and quite specifically for A1 as well. But let's look at the tectonic shift, what it actually means. Roe versus Wade was based on a lie, and back in I think it was 73 was the decision.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And it was actually based on a lie, and the actual woman upon whom the case was based never actually had the abortion, and was grateful for it down the track, although she did advocate. She was a big voice for abortion. But it was based on a lie, and it was claimed to be a constitutional right. Well, it's not, and they're making that noise now. You've taken away a constitutional right. It is not a constitutional right. That is a bald-faced lie. And when you got to understand the left and let's just talk about whether you like abortion or not, or whether it's appropriate or not. We'll talk about that in a second. But the left are brilliant because they will take away your constitutional right in the United States to bear arms, and then they'll claim that the right to have an abortion is constitutional right, which it's not. But what it means is this is if anyone was waiting for a signal that the white hats are in control and the black hats are out of power, they are done. They are finished. And Roe versus Wade is it's right up there. And if you want to look at the reverse, if the Second Amendment was reversed and there was and taken away, you would know definitively that the black hats have won and the white hats have lost. That's the level of importance this particular decision has in terms of understanding who's in charge in the US. It ain't the left. It ain't the left, and you've got to understand that the very vocal group that are pro-abortion to the point of lunacy, and we'll talk about that too if you wish, are a small percentage of the American people and a small percentage of the Australian people. They really are, because as you know, abortion is a big issue for us. Full-term abortion, post-birth abortion up to 2 years. Peter Singer, Australian bioethicist, allegedly given one of Australia's highest awards by Prime Minister Julia Gillard. And this is the same imbecile that says, as I said, post-birth abortion up to 2 years. So people get wrapped around the axles about a clump of cells, and they've got no problem with killing a 2-year-old. So the tectonic issue, the big issue is the black hats are out of control, the white hats are in charge, and this is a signal to the world. Folks, pay attention.
I thought the same thing. Immediately, the decision came through, and all the leftists' arms went up, and they all started squealing like stuck pigs. I thought, well, Joe Biden can't be in control if that decision has been made. No, none of the left would agree with that at all. So clearly, he doesn't have control of the Supreme Court. There have been some other interesting decisions, apparently some that haven't been handed down yet. Are you aware of any of those?
Yeah, I think I know what you're alluding to. Hang on, mental block.
I'm
You're gonna have to feed me a line here. Sorry.
There are a couple of things that are pending, and I believe that the Supreme Court at the moment is on a break, whether that's a summer break or whatever, I'm not quite sure. But I believe that they've also made a decision regarding mandatory jabbing in the US, and it has found in favor of the people. They just haven't released it yet. Now, I'm wondering why. Well, I've got a few reasons why that might be. Could it be a release of something that's going to come up, I don't know, in the next week and a bit, maybe?
Could be. I don't know on that one. But you're right about, and I can't talk to that one at all. I'm sorry, but there have been a couple of decisions that have been released. One was a coach who took a knee and said a prayer after a football match, and he was. They said he couldn't do it, and the Supreme Court said that prayer is okay. You can do it. And again, the left went nuts. That's that one. They're taking a knee for a prayer. The Americans are big on this. They wear their faith on their sleeve. They're right up front. They've got no shame, no embarrassment. But the prayer issue is a big one. And there was one other, and I'm sorry, oh man, but there's a third decision that's come out recently, which indicates once again that the Constitution is strong. It's being looked after correctly, and even that pedophile John Roberts on the Supreme Court can't bend the others to his wishes.
That would be the I think what we've been neglecting to remember, because there's been so much going on, is the decision about guns in America.
That's the one. Thank you.
Right. Which I think was a big surprise to the left. And people say it's a huge win for the NRA, and I understand the NRA is a very large and loud movement, but at the end of the day, this is just backing up the Constitution, although I think the intent of the Constitution was one thing, and the American public have taken their use or desire or ability to have guns to another level. My understanding is that the Second Amendment gives rights to Americans to bear arms against a bad government, to rise up as a militia.
No, it doesn't give the Americans the right. The Second Amendment reads, the government will make no law that infringes the right to bear arms. The implicit right to bear arms is there. The government does not give the people the right to bear arms. What it says is the government may not infringe, may not pass any law that infringes on their right. So they have a right to self-defense. This is what it is. This is the right to self-defense. Now, the preceding line is, in order to maintain a well-regulated militia, the right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. That's the actual wording of it. And you're exactly right. But this is a self-defense clause.
Right,
That's what it says. It says we have the right to defend ourselves. Well, they have the right to defend themselves.
Yep.
And in order to maintain a well-regulated militia, because it was against tyranny, that the no law shall be passed that infringes that right.
That it was
so
all...
the government doesn't give them the right to bear arms. That is intrinsic in their humanity.
Seeing we're talking about all things government at the moment, a good question here. We're still awaiting the outcome of the 2020 election decision. Some would say we're still waiting for the outcome correctly delivered of the 2022 Australian election. Any further news, or have you heard anything about an investigation? The AEC seemed to be very quiet. I rang them myself the other day to inquire about the previous inquiry I'd made and to see if the investigation had been started, and I was hung up on after I was on hold for 7 minutes.
Well, if you wanted your answer, mate, I think you got it.
Yeah. I mean, nothing else to do, I suppose. You just sit around and wait for them to do, shit like that. But,
well, maybe Tom Rogers is waiting for instructions from Penny Wong, who's waiting for instructions from the Chinese Communist Party. But that's just a joke, because of course Tom Rogers is actually a corrupt, or that Penny Wong is actually a CCP spy. This is just a spoof, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, until it's proven true, and then we can lock them up. But it's just a joke. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. It's all alleged until it's until there's tears in the playground.
Yeah, that's right.
I've got a question here from a mate, Daniel, who is very close to us with Project Matilda. He has asked me to ask you this one directly. There are claims Russian soldiers are deliberately murdering, torturing, and raping civilians. Could this be at all true? And would the people in charge, the captains, the higher-ups of those people, allow this kind of barbaric act to happen under their authority in the middle of a war, especially as they have a highly dangerous and sophisticated job to do, which we've all been talking about through the corners of our mouth so long? So this is a little bit more of the mainstream media disinformation.
That's what the Azov battalion's been doing. The Ukrainians are guilty of war crimes. There's plenty of evidence of it. And in fact, if and I'm sure that your listeners do, they get off the mainstream and look for alternative sources, you'll find genuine journos out there that actually want to report the truth. And it's actually the Ukrainians that have been guilty of war crimes. And this goes back to World War II. The Ukrainians, the Ukraine Nazis were the worst of the worst. They were bad, bad people. And this has been going on for a long time. So this is nothing new. Ukraine's history is unpleasant. And as I said, the Hitler's Ukraine Nazis were the nastiest of the lot. And that's saying something.
Absolutely. The media narrative, I reckon the media narrative is starting to turn. Have you noticed anything in the last week or so, a softening of the media rhetoric, or even an excuse or two for maybe thinking in a different direction?
Yeah, it's slipping out. And as we've been watching, it's slipping out more and more. I've had a very close eye on the pedophile cases, because it's not about the dirty old man in the raincoat hanging out the school. This pedophilia issue is the centerpiece of what they do and how they do it. This is all about the kids. It's all about, it really is. And those of you who know what I'm talking about, know what I'm talking about. And the rest of you, you've got to get out there and do your research. It's not a peripheral issue, and there are other things to worry about. This is it. This is everything. This is how it binds them together through their common criminality. It binds them together in terms of what they're actually after. Because, as been previously explained, if you traffic in guns or gold or money or whatever, drugs, you sell it, you lose it, it's gone. But you can sell the same child 100, 200 times before they're dead. And that's why it will be overtaking the drug and weapons trade very, very shortly, because it was well projected to. It's going to come to a crashing halt real soon. But that's why this is such a big deal. There's something in it for everybody who is broken and bent and sick and satanic, and it is such a lucrative business for them, and it meets everybody's needs, criminal needs, and then involve. And just so you were clear on this, organisations like Red Cross, they're involved in this. They're up to their neck in it. How do I know that? Because things I've seen overseas, the Red Cross is not the benevolent organisation it purports to be. It'll traffic guns, gold, drugs, whatever you want in their aircraft. So there you go, folks. The world ain't what you thought what it was. So yeah, the media narrative. To get back to your original question, Blind Freddy can see the leaks, the innuendo, the statements. They're gently trying to wake people up. Frustrating for us, but we have to keep repeating this story. So, ladies and gentlemen, whenever you see one of these stories, just hammer all the yellow and orange hats as hard as you can. Just keep repeating the stories over and over and over again, because we're going to build that center of gravity up. So when we launch, we've got enough people to fight.
Absolutely. Getting a whole heap of questions tonight, Rick, and worthwhile pointing out too, folks, if you want to come along to our live show, which is going to be happening next Tuesday night on the Gold Coast, then the tickets are available from stickytickets.com.au. You can see the address there. I think they're $5 if you buy them online, $10 if you get them at the door. It's only just to cover costs. Rick, I can tell you there's been some huge reaction about being able to get in front of a computer and ask you questions. The people have you've lined up to do that. In fact, Toowoomba Bundaberg on the way, and I think we'll be coming back to the Gold Coast, I think staying at Twin Towns at some stage. So it's going to be a great event. I hope you're looking forward to it as much as I am. It's going to be great.
Oh, absolutely. And the best part is the people get to ask the questions, the hard questions, and they can ask whatever they like.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, it's all good.
And whether
hello, he's dropped out again. Please come back. Oh no. All right, ladies and gentlemen, are you still there? Can you hear me? All right, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm gonna see if I can grab some of these questions I can see in the chat, and let's just do that. Where are we? Can you ask? Oh, that's disappeared. Oh, goodness me. Okay, you can hear me. That's good. Oh, what do I make of Carolyn Kennedy, JFK being appointed ambassador to Australia? I think it's a bloody good thing, and I think it's a lovely signal, don't you? To have a Carolyn Kennedy as the ambassador to Oz. So yeah, that's good. I was just answering a question quickly while you were off watering the horses there, Carl.
That's great. That's great. Rick, Caroline Kennedy one's an interesting one. I heard a very interesting story about the Kennedy line the other day, and there may well be a Kennedy in Australia and have been in Australia for many years. So that might be a line that the women's magazines might follow once Caroline Kennedy gets to town. Could be a bit interesting.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. Sorry, I'm just looking at
I heard speaking of the media, as we were before, the media turning around, I heard that the TGA were reviewing the need for people to have a fourth jab, given that the Omicron version that might be coming our way would be ineffective or unaffected by the current jab, pretty much like all the other versions, I suspect. Now, once again, a bit of a turnaround in the narrative. Oh well. What are your thoughts?
They're running out. The plan didn't work out the way it was supposed to. As we know, there were at least 8 alleged variants. We saw the list well before Omicron came out, and this was supposed to.
Yeah.
Each variant was supposed to, as you know, was supposed to coincide with an increase of deaths because this terrible virus is morphing, is adapting, is changing. But as you know, it was going to be the first one, get a jab, and then that jab creates more death, and that's going to be called variant number 1. And so you get another jab, and then that creates more death, which creates more death, which creates more. So it was supposed to be this sweep up in terms of deaths, blaming it on the variations, but the initial influx of deaths never happened. The variants came out, nothing happened, and so they're stuck now between a rock and a hard place. They're looking increasingly imbecilic. They really are, and the people know it. And I saw some interesting numbers the other day, and I can't tell you the source, but this alleged 70, 80, 90% double, triple jabs, complete lie. And that's one of the reasons they're terrified, because there's a large percentage of population that might have had one, but they have not had the second and third. And the first one was never going to be. There's a lot of saline, is my understanding. In the first lot, but there's a lot of people that haven't had the jab, and they're terrified the big deaths will now not occur, because even the second and third jab, people are now saying, "I'm done, no more. I'm not taking anymore." It's look, I laugh, except for the fact that kids.
I've been encouraged by seeing up. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They've now turned their focus on the kids under 5, basically meaning that as soon as your kid's born, we're going to jab them. That's got a future that's bathed in hell for us all, I think.
Yeah, that's what. And again, and I'll just repeat this for the new listeners. What's being revealed is what their plan was always intended to be, but thankfully it's being sidelined. It's been damaged. Their plan isn't rolling up the way they hoped it would in terms of effect, but what we are being allowed to witness is what they intended for us. And so, if you're wondering why announcements are made but they don't quite occur, and the classic example is the World Health Organization Constitution, Global Constitution, was supposed to come, and that was the plan, and we were going to sign up to it. And yet 27 African nations were persuaded to vote against it for good reasons in order to stop it. But again, what you are seeing, ladies and gentlemen, is the plan revealing what was intended, but then never actually taking place. They are trying to wake us up. Well, we're awake. They're trying to give us an idea of the depravity of what we were destined for.
So what is the next step? Like Lillian's asking here. I mean, you can't go to the next door neighbor who's still asleep and kick their door in screaming, "They're trying to kill us. They're trying to kill us." What can we do?
As I said last week, what A1 is doing, we're certainly building the ark. We're just getting the word out that we're still letterbox dropping. We're still getting the word out and building the organization, because the flood will come. It's just that patient explanation and waking people up. Look, Washington said it, and this applies to anybody that intends to lead, and this applies to every A1 member, because we talk about leadership in A1 as our primary skill set. Every one of us has to lead their local, they lead their family, lead their community, lead their suburb, their town, their city, whatever. They have to be an organization of leaders, and patience is the one thing that all leaders have to have, that sheer patience. Now, we all lose it occasionally, I get it, but that patient waking people up, because we're all asleep at some point. Every one of us was asleep at some point. And so people patiently help us get on our way. So that's what we've got to do. Just A1, then that's why we're frustrated but relaxed, if that makes sense, because we're actually doing something. We have a plan when we're executing that plan. Letterbox dropping, getting ready for the Victorian election, say, for example, tightening up the entire organization, make sure the constitution is sound, it's got no holes in it, make sure that the IT underpinning the influx of members is going to hold and it won't break under the strain. All those hard mechanical stuff. When you're busy, you don't worry. And let me give you a story. A mate of mine, he was a climber, a very good climber, and he was on his own, and he had his ropes and his stuff with him. And he saw this waterfall, and he let himself down through the waterfall, because he thought it'd be fun to climb through a waterfall, because he's a very talented climber, and this was something new. And he went down the waterfall, and he got at the bottom, and he did what he wanted to do, and then it was time to climb back up again. And the trouble was, he did it with a prusik knot, which is a very simple rescue knot. You can do it with a shoelace. You wrap it around the rope, and then the vertical rope, and you use that as your grip, and you slowly, 6 inches at a time, depending on the length of the prusik knot, you can climb up the rope. And he thought, yeah, this will be fun. But halfway up, the cold water and wind started to freeze him up, and he knew he was going to die. He was hanging halfway up. The water was pouring down on top of him, and he knew that if he stopped, he would die.
Yeah.
They'd find his body frozen under this waterfall. And so what he did, I said, well, what did you do? He said, mate, I just looked at the 6 inches in front of my face, and I was just focused on the next step, the next step, the next step. And inch by inch by inch, he got himself obviously up the rope and over the lip, and then he survived the ordeal. The point of the story is very obvious. When you're in a problem, it's that 6 inches. Look, just focus on what you've got to do. Do another letterbox drop, because that activity, that knowledge that you are taking action, meaningful action that will contribute to a solution, will settle you down. It's the people that do nothing are most worried. And we've got tremendous people. They're delivering food around to people that they know may not have enough. Bags of food just turns up. And that's what our people are up to. And so are we concerned about the future? Of course we are. Are we doing our best to do something about it before it happens? You bet. And that's why, as I said, we might be frustrated, but we're relaxed at the same time, knowing we're taking action.
I'll get to that question on the screen from Petro. I've got one I want to ask you that sort of leads on from what you've been saying, but that one's been there for a while. Quickly, the Postmaster General, is he higher than the Governor General, as far as you're aware?
Mate, that's more your bailiwick than mine, I can tell you.
Yeah. At this juncture, I'm very open to interpretation would be my answer. Rick, you're saying about how important it is that we all get out and do something, whether it's letterbox drops, build something locally in the community where the community can gather around, grow. From there, a leader will rise, which is what A1 is hoping will happen, and people will step forward as independents grown out of their own local neighborhood and step forward to represent the community at large. We use and hear words in the circles that we run in every day, words like infiltrator and controlled opposition. I think a lot of people hear those terms, and many, I suspect, use them without actually knowing what they're really referring to. Now, can you explain to me, to somebody who doesn't know what an infiltrator is and doesn't really understand what controlled opposition is, can you give
Sure.
us a bit of a breakdown of both those things, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Building any organization is hard work. Anybody that started a company knows how tough it is. You have to be everything. You build everything up. People that work for corporations, they turn up, there's a desk, there's a laptop, you get a login, you do your job, you've got an intro. It all happens magically around you, right? And so what it's easier to do in terms of controlling an organization, that's why espionage is such a useful tool. Because rather than trying to build something and steer the ship, you get in, you penetrate, you infiltrate into the organization, you get a position of responsibility, not necessarily high up, not high visibility, but a key position. For example, somebody that's checking the working with children's checks for a political organization, let's say, and they let all the pedos slip through with dodgy. See what I mean? You get somebody in, and that infiltration then starts to degrade the organization. It happens in nature as well. The cuckoo, the bird, the cuckoo, it will lay its egg in another bird's nest. Now, the cuckoo lays it in the nest of a smaller species of bird. And so when the cuckoo hatchling hatches, it is larger than the other ones. It knocks the other birds out of the nest and is more ravenous with the appetite. So when this mother bird comes to deliver food to the whole nest, the cuckoo takes the food and boots the other birds out. That's the purpose of an infiltrator. Now, controlled opposition, that's getting someone. Controlled opposition, once you've infiltrated, and we've seen lots of examples of this in Australia. They'll get in, and the names, I've mentioned the names before, they get in, they get a position of authority because they're backed by somebody, and that somebody generally has money. And in this business, I can tell you, nobody's got money except the crooks. Nobody's going to give big money to anybody unless they have some nefarious objective, because people with money have got money because they're careful with it. Now, so what they do is they get the infiltrator who's now in a position of authority. They build a reputation. And what they might do then is there'll be let's say there's a union protest, and this individual has a reputation for being a bit of a mover and a shaker and a nice young chap. And he'll say, look, I'll take it over and run it for you. And then a week, 2 weeks before the thing, he kills the whole idea. That's controlled opposition. That's one of the objectives that they will achieve. The other objective is to get in, get the money, and collapse it completely, and just walk away from the results. The last thing that they do is they'll get in and divert it off track. And let me give you an example. It was clear in Canberra that the problem wasn't the mandates. The mandates was an issue, no doubt. But getting rid of the mandates wasn't the issue. What the issue was getting rid of the government, because if you get rid of the mandates, they can always bring the mandates back because the same crooks are running the show. So A1 steadfastly stood by our objective of the government was the problem. And people say, no, it's just the mandates. Just get rid of the mandates. Just get rid of the mandates. And every one of them has fallen by the wayside. As I keep saying to people, we don't line up with anybody because they won't let us vet them. We vet everybody.
Yeah.
And one by one, I've said, watch them reveal themselves, watch them collapse, watch them disappear, watch them be exposed for what they are. And so you infiltrate, and then you control the direction of that organization by making sure it goes in a direction you want. And it might actually be positive. It might achieve a sub-objective of your goal, but it never actually hits the main target, if that makes sense. So it appears they're doing good work, but they always deviate away from what we call the center of gravity, that thing you must destroy to win the war, or that one thing you must control to win the war. You can hit decisive points around that center of gravity, and they're important, but you can hold as many decisive points as you want to, but if you don't hit the center of gravity, you never win. And so that's what they do. They infiltrate, they get in, get a position of authority, not necessarily the leadership, rarely the leadership, in fact. It's generally somebody underneath. And they will either get in and destroy projects, get in, take the money and run, or just divert the controlled opposition, divert people's attention from what really needs to be hit. And we've seen this, and the first 6 months of this year, man, we saw it in Canberra. It was clear as day.
I think it's poking its head up again in that whole Canberra movement. I know there is another event happening this weekend. I think it's the return of Michael Gray-Griffiths to Canberra after he's done his big lap of Australia. And what a magnificent effort it was. He deserves a day in Canberra. People should be there to help cheer him home. And wish I could be there. It'd be a great event. But there is a movement, or a wider argument, if you like, happening between the freedom movement in the background of Canberra. This is predominantly fired by groups out of some input from Queensland, South Australia, really. But predominantly these are Victorian groups working very hard to achieve goals which we all seem on the surface to agree with. How is it that people should decide which freedom movement they should give their time to? It's a bit like, how do you figure out which, talking head on YouTube you want to follow? I guess. How do you make that choice of a freedom movement you want to be behind?
Oh, that's the $64 question. That's the $64 question. That's why I'll answer you in a second, but that's exactly why I'm sitting here right now. I got sick to death of being led down the garden path. Now, how would you do it? You've got to have your wits about you. You really do. Listen to what they say. Watch what they do. Are they committed to doing? Is their strategy making sense? Are they holding on to a set of principles? Are they a publicly examinable organization? Are they registered? Who's in charge? Are they audited? Where's the money going? If they're passing a bucket around, I can understand why that was done up at Epic. And there was, at one point, there were 3 buckets going around, 3 or 4. And one of the guys came up to me, one of the security guys came up to me and said, that guy's a crook. He's got nothing to do with the other 3 buckets, and yet he's collecting money and disappeared with it. So you're going to understand that people are crooks, folks. Vet them so closely. Vet them. Yeah. Now, I've been seeing some of the questions. When are you coming here? When are you coming? We'll be coming. But just to remind you, you get to ask me any question you like, and I'll give you the answers. And listen to the quality of the answer. In Queensland, when we did the Northern New South Queensland tour, 3 and 4 hours at a time, and I took any question completely unmonitored, and they were honest answers. And look, I'm not proud of this, but that fearless honesty goes a long way. I got asked in Canberra, and I've mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again for the new people. I was asked in Canberra, and from an older gentleman who obviously didn't trust me one bit, and that's fine because people say, "Why should I trust you?" I said, "Don't trust me." On the balance of probabilities, have a look at the data, make your mind up, and if you're right, good, and if you're wrong, you've learned a lesson moving right along. See, I've worked with enough sociopaths in my career to see them and spot them quite quickly. That's great. The first time you see them, they're almost impossible to spot. But when you start to spot them, you go, "Oh, okay, this stinks." But anyway, back to fearless honesty. We were in Canberra doing a Q&A. Again, always uncensored. There's no MC. There's nobody checking the questions. And one older gentleman with a dirty look on his face said, "Why were you never a Mason?" Which is a really good question. Why was I never a Mason? I just swung around immediately and said, "Because I had an affair with a senior officer's wife and my name got put on the blacklist." Now, am I proud of that? No, but it's the truth. Now, how do I know that? It was years later, because I didn't know about Masons when I was a young bloke at all. I just heard about these apron-wearing goat jockeys, and I had no idea what it was. I didn't much care. I just wanted to, do my job. But I found out later by somebody who's in the know, your name was put on the blacklist. And after that, I sort of smiled and went, okay, well, that makes sense. Why other people seem to get up and other people got the jobs. And I might not be the best guy on the planet, but I'm certainly not down the bottom. And these other clowns and clods, morons would get the gig, and I'd just shake my head and think, what the hell's going on? Anyway, so I found out that my name was on the blacklist. I was never going to get up. And then the question after that was, well, how did he find out? So who's betraying the Masonic filth? Who's telling him about the blacklist and he was on it? And second question was, whose wife did he diddle? So they're all worried about that. And so that sort of honesty, I mean, Jesus, folks, make your mind up. As I said, look, if you want to look, here's the book, Greatness Awaits You, The 5 Pillars of Real Leadership. Read it. Read it. $30. And you can read it for yourself and you can decide it's either the best piece of leadership advice you'll ever get or it's fire starter, and you can use it either way. It doesn't really matter. But for $30, at least you know that I wrote it, every word, and it's in there. And it's my 40 years plus in leadership in business, military and public service. And so let me give you, you'll only know this, in 40 years' time when I'm long dead, and you look back and go, oh yeah, he was telling the truth. The reason we are so successful in A1 is we don't let anybody in. We vet very carefully. We really do. We really do. As I said, if you get the winning numbers to Lotto, I don't much care. I don't care. We're going to vet you. But what that means is that we would rather fight this war the way we want to fight it. And nobody's seen this before, but everyone thinks this is politics as usual. Do the deal. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. No, my enemy is my enemy. I don't give a flying shit what good things he can do for me. I will put a bullet in his brain, both literally and metaphorically, if I need to. And that's the people closest to me. Every man's got his price. Sorry. That's why we're different. That's why we're winning. That's why we are an internationally recognized force for good, because we don't do deals with anybody. The smart play is not always the right. And I'll tell you now, the bride and I, and Sarah and her husband, Rick, Sarah's our national co and all the state coordinators, they are so dedicated to this. And the hours that they put in for no reward is extraordinary. And I'm telling you, we cannot be bought. And I can tell you, if you threaten me and my family, I've said it before, but I've promised not to swear too much anymore, but I'll visit upon you such violence that hasn't been seen since the Middle Ages. And to all the Masonic filth out there, and here's one for you. The Masonic filth are panicking in a very real way. Because guess what?
Yes.
The people above them have evaporated and they don't know what to do. And they're in a flat spin. They're being taken out. They're taking themselves out. And their world, which they believe is impenetrable. And up until now, it was. You couldn't do a thing without the Masonic filth okaying it. And that's why people commit suicide by shooting themselves in the back of the head 3 times. And then the police say suicide. And then the media doesn't think there's anything wrong with that. So up until recently, they had a death grip on this planet, the entire planet. And all of these things. And I saw a good meme the other day, Hillary Clinton. I don't care who you are. Nobody has 56 of their closest friends commit suicide. And yet nobody asks the question. But something has changed. Something has changed. All of a sudden, that certainty. And
Absolutely.
I heard our intel is pretty good. And I won't mention their names, but there are 3 personalities that everyone would recognize. One is terrified. They're big names, right? One is absolutely terrified because this individual knows the truth and what's coming. One is so elevated that this individual doesn't think that this individual is a threat, but this individual is about to feel real terror, very close. And one is still fat, dumb, and happy and thinks that this individual believes that protection is all around this individual and can never be touched. And these are three big names that Australia will know. And some have got the memo, some are anticipating the memo, and some have got no idea what's going on. And they are going to cry like babies. Booty hoo.
So when they are touched, will the people see that? Will the people hear that?
Maybe
see
not
it?
immediately.
Will there be
maybe not immediately.
public recognition?
Yeah, no. You see, the way it's been explained is this: a lot of these guys have already been arrested, some haven't, and you'll see the vision maybe in a couple of weeks, a couple of months, and you'll see some dishevelled individual with a tie loose and the hair ruffled and a pair of manacles being frog marched out of a building. But this individual has probably been arrested for 3-4 months already, maybe longer.
Yeah,
it's a movie, unfortunately.
Yeah, true.
Yep. You'll see the
good
confession.
question here. Good question here from Ken, asking whether or not you know about the cult using transgender to push as a weapon to destroy society.
Yeah, of course it is. If you look at the World Economic Forum, you'll see that one of their big three issues is to remove the differentiation between men and women. The transgender is a big part of that. And if you look into the WWF and their satanic beliefs and the rest of it, you'll see exactly why. But yeah, it's exactly the point. And let me give a touch up to the LGBT industry out there. If you were genuinely concerned about the well-being of your people, you'd be doing something about it rather than being used as a Trojan horse. And I've got gay friends and I've got no problem with your sexual orientation at all. None.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, it's funny. You haven't spoken up about the child sex trafficking because the LGBT industry is a Trojan horse for part of this whole process. The groomers are in control. Now, is that a wild claim or is that backed up by fact? As I've mentioned before, back in the 80s, I think it was in Queensland, there was an LGBTP seminar in Queensland.
Yes.
And the P's were there and they were out and proud, and the LGBT mob had to disassociate because it was a bridge too far. Well, they're still being there. And the pedophile information exchange pie in the UK, same deal. It's been out there forever, folks. And the transgenderism is part of the WEF's objective. They need to remove the difference between men and women. That's why they had the marriage issue. That's why they have, two dads are better than one. Stories from the ABC. That's why you have the whole men can compete against women in sport. That's why apparently men can give birth to babies, and kids at school can't tell the difference because they're getting indoctrinated. It's all part of the process. It's definitely part of the process, without a doubt.
Yeah. Albo's just reappointed the head of the Defence Forces again. Is that a? There was a big delay there. I was wondering whether or not you'd just fallen off your chair.
No. Okay, again, for people to understand why this happens, when you've got an organisation and you want, I'm not suggesting that the leadership of the Defence Force is corrupt, right? I'm sure they're sterling men and doing a bang-up job for the defence of the country. Bullshit. Anyway, when you get you're trying to infiltrate an organisation, it takes a lot of time and effort to get someone to ingratiate themselves into that organisation. It takes money, at times, effort. So once you've got somebody in there doing your bidding, and they're not the brightest, they're not the sharpest tools in the shed. Chief of the Defence Force, Angus Campbell, thick as two short planks. Rick Bird, Chief of Army. I know these guys personally. Nice bloke, bit thick, never could see the big picture. Does what he's told. Nice bloke. Once you've put that much effort into getting someone in a position of authority that'll do what they're told to do, regardless of the consequences, and I'm not suggesting that Campbell and Burr are in that category, but once you've got them in there, you want to keep them there for as long as possible. it takes time. It takes time to get people in. It gets time. So they will stay there, and they will keep them there well after they don't want to be there anymore. It might explain, I'm not suggesting
Yeah.
anything corrupt here, but it might explain why Scott Morrison looked nothing but relieved at the outcome of the election. He didn't look like a man who wanted to win and was bitterly disappointed that his rival won. Now, I could be wrong, and I'm not suggesting anything untoward by Scott Morrison, who's probably a lovely chap. But my goodness me, didn't he look relieved? Didn't he look like a man that just wanted to get off that stage as quick as he could?
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. I'm going to get on to some screenshots that I've got. Some of them are comments that have come from previous videos. Some are questions that I'll pick off my iPad, which I didn't have time to load up in here, Rick. A lot of food destruction questions are being asked overseas, particularly, and I'll put up a shot now. In America, food preparation plants, everything from meat packing plants to spice packing plants are catching fire. The same sort of thing has happened here. We have had some Australian meat packing plants go up in flames. You can see here with this image of, maybe you can't, it's a bit, have all suffered fire damage, except for one that actually had an aeroplane crash into it, of all weird things. Have you heard much about, I mean, clearly we're having supply chain issues. Lettuce is, well, I saw it today at about $7 an iceberg. So it's coming back down again in price. But are we going these sorts of being in America?
Sorry, you broke up at the end there. Are we? Yeah, you just broke up. What was the actual last bit of the question? Are we
going to experience? Are we going to experience those same sort of food shortages and that sort of destruction here in Australia?
I'm honestly, mate, I don't know. I don't think to the same extent, although I think we will, and that's why I've been telling people to make sure you stock up for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
The number of what I'm hoping, and this is speculation on my part, so I've got no hard intel on this one. What I'm hoping is that a lot of these food plant destruction stories, again, it's what they intended to do, but they might be being overstated by the White Hats to wake people up. They intended to destroy this many, but once again, unless you're physically there, who knows how much is true. But again, it follows the pattern. It seems reasonable. This is what they wanted to do. They wanted to break down the food supply, break down the supply chain itself, as well as the raw materials, the food, to show us what's going to happen. And there might be a brief period. I hope it's not going to be as bad, but it's certainly what the bad guys intended.
Absolutely. Things are a bit slow tonight. We will hopefully be able to get these questions up, or comments in some cases. I'll pull that like and subscribe out. Do the Aussie Cossack thing, folks. Like and subscribe, please. Not that I'm really counting numbers, but I'm told that 10,000 is a significant number to get to, and we're nearly there. So like and subscribe, folks, if you can help us. So this came in from Cameron. He's been forced into bankruptcy because of border closures. He's had a limousine company, which I know a bit about, as I spent some time driving them. Not Cameron's, but limos. 30 plus cars is a big business. Now, he's gone bankrupt. He wants to join A1, but your policy under A1 says because he's been bankrupt, he can't. How can you help him? How can he help you?
Oh, no, that's fine. It's not a problem. We've got another category of supporter, because we've got a lot of people who have dual nationals. For example, they've got a pension from the mother country. They are dual citizens, Australian citizens, which we're not big fans of, but we understand why people have that. They're dual citizens. They've got a pension. If they cut off their ties to the mother country, they lose their pension. Got it. So a number of these people will fill in the category of supporter. So you get a member, you pay $100, you get all the full rights. You get to vote, you get to take executive positions. If you're a supporter, you can turn up to events and just support. You can help. You still need your working with children's check, but you can help hand things out. You can help, cook the sausages or whatever is being run. But you don't attend meetings. You don't have a voice within the organisation, but you can certainly help when we need it. So there's something for you to do, without a doubt.
But you can't run for a position.
No.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the next one. So many things have been afoot to expose the corrupt CEOs, premiers for the last couple of years, and still nothing's happening. The freedom movement in Australia looks like it's more like controlled opposition or controlled distraction. No wonder so many people are giving it a wide berth.
Absolutely, I get that.
What are your thoughts on that one?
No, I understand that. We've had people that have drifted away from us and said busted flush, and then they realize, oh, okay, now I see why you've been doing what you've been doing the way you've been doing it, and they come back. And that is absolutely fine. We have no problem with people changing their mind and walking away and coming back. That's exactly what you should do. It just means you're thinking. And to be honest, if A1 wasn't in this gig, I can tell you I'd be following nobody in the freedom movement. Not one. Because my goodness me, they have all, over the last 6 months, revealed themselves. They really have. And you can mention any name at all, and they've revealed themselves. So if it wasn't for A1, I wouldn't be doing it. I'd be doing something just by myself with my bride, because I don't feel like following anybody that's on the right track. So I understand the frustration, I really do. But here's the thing. We know that things are changing. It doesn't look like it, and we've explained this before, but I'll do it again. Let's imagine a small village full of terrorists, and you're in the jungle, and you know the village is there. Now, your job is to go take out the bad guys, because the bad guys are terrorizing all the good people in this village. The first thing you got to do is find out where they are. You find out how many there are. What are their routes in and out of the village? What weapons do they carry? What demolitions do they have? Where are their caches, their stores? You need a lot of intelligence before you go anywhere near the target, anywhere. Now, let's say you've got all the intelligence you need. Great. Then, if you've got the troops and it requires it, you'll put in an outer cordon. An outer cordon is a ring around the village to stop anybody getting in and interfering with what you're about to do. Then you have an inner cordon, which stops anybody inside the village getting out. So you've got these two layers of protection. Now, this is a very heavy version of what we can do with small numbers, but I'm using this as an analogy. Then finally, the teams come in, and the teams come in from as many directions simultaneously as possible. Because you can imagine, if you didn't put the outer cordon, the inner cordon, and then come in from multiple directions, if you just charge the village from the north, everyone would just scarper in every other direction. Now, you see how that works. And then you've got to go hut to hut, and you don't know who the good guy is and you don't know who the bad guy is, and you've got to go through one by one, and eventually you identify all the good guys, you get all the bad guys, you bag them, tag them, and you send them back home for treatment. Now, that's just a village in a jungle. The world is your target. Now, just imagine for a second having to follow that same sequence of events, making sure that nobody interferes with what you're doing, making sure nobody gets away. And you've heard about the deep underground military bases and the hyperspeed train links between continents. Can you see how a lot of work's got to be done to stop their escape before you go in and take them out? Now, the world is a big place. And I got asked this question in Canberra, and I said to the woman, okay, I just told you that story. Now, I want you personally to take out the local ACT police station. Just imagine that's your job. Not in reality, but imagine you had to do it yourself. What do you need? And she looked at me blankly, and I said, I'll give you a hand. First of all, you need people.
Yeah.
You can't do it on your own. Then you need intelligence, as we spoke about. Then you need someone to run the operation for you, because you can't be everywhere. Then you're going to need logistics. You're going to need food, transport, whatever you need, stuff. You need somebody to plan the operation who knows how to plan this stuff. Then you need communications before, during, and after the operation. Then you have to train people up, because not everyone's going to turn up ready to go. And it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. Now, that's you and one police station.
Now, imagine looks like Rick's dropped out at his end now.
No, I'm still here.
That's all right. The way things are going tonight, folks, we're used to it. That's all.
Can you hear me, guys?
I'm
talking, guys. So if you can hear
we
me,
are doing the best that we can to try and rectify this problem. And as I've said, I'm looking into the Starlink system. Is very, very good when it's good, but very, very
Okay,
bad
you
when
can still
it's
hear me?
not
Great. I'll keep talking. I've got
good.
Carl in the background.
So
But I'll keep
there
talking.
are some issues with making that system mobile. They don't come out
I saw a question. Why do
with a
I
mobile
refer to my
system yet.
wife as my
So
bride?
we'll
That's just a term of
have to
endearment
just
because I still love her as much
do a
as
little
I
bit more investigation
when
before we go down that route, because
when
it
I
is
married.
quite
So the bride
expensive to
is just a
be
term of
installing.
endearment.
It works out 1,300 receiver, and I think there is a modem involved as well. So
Okay, Carl can't hear us, but you can hear us
monthly
both.
connection is about
Correct?
$130, I think, from memory. But apparently it's very, very good when it's good, and not so good when it's not good. So, Rick is back.
Hey, Rick.
I'll remove him. I'll bring him back. See.
Now we're here. We
Oh,
can
there
hear
you
you,
go.
mate,
You're
but you
back.
couldn't hear. No,
No,
we could
couldn't
hear
hear
you,
a
mate.
word.
Yeah, no,
You
you're
think
the
Starlink,
one that was on the outside.
you're going to give me a free system? I've given yeah. Oh, well. We'll see how we go. Yes, Melissa. Melissa's Freedom has been yelling in the chat. Yes, I am coming to Bundaberg. I can't tell you what date, but I am coming to Bundaberg, and Rick will be on the other end of the screen in Bundaberg. I promise. Unless, of course, Telstra doesn't want us to connect that night at Bundaberg. It's a good place to party. I used to do it years ago. I'll get back to a few of these things that I've got lined up on the screen here, Rick. I'll throw up another comment that we picked up during the week. I'm not sure whether or not these things are going to throw the machine into a conniption or what. Every time I hit a button, I sort of think, oh, gee, is this going to throw us into some sort of loop? It's certainly very slow. It doesn't want to throw these things up, or I can't see it. Can you?
Yeah, I've got it. Yep. Can you hear me?
It's not throwing it up.
Yeah, no, I saw it. Carl, can you hear me?
And unfortunately, they're too small for me to read. Oh,
We answered that one
oh,
last
good. Well,
week.
if you can answer that.
Yeah, no, we answered that.
Oh, you had that one last.
Yeah, no, we answered that last week.
Posting a question on behalf of a young man. Oh, well, there you go. Yep, right. I beg your pardon. Right, I go to the one underneath that. Well, I'll eventually try and go to the one underneath that. When I say eventually, I mean it'll eventually happen. Oh God, that is just so slow. Sorry about this, folks. Well, yeah, it might be because we've got. Hello, Chief. It's me, Max.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me, Carl?
Got you, Ricardo. It's all good.
Right. Okay. All right.
It's a bit chunky. Wow.
I can
Yes,
hear
I
you,
can,
Carl.
Rick. Yep, I'll nod my head.
Okay, great.
Me,
I can hear you
but
too.
I can.
Great.
There you go. Shane's got the right idea. He's telling me to hang up on the show. Beautiful. Yeah, Shane's got the right idea. He's telling me to hang up and let you run the show. Now, let's see what else we can find here. Bring up another one of these comments. Oh, that one.
All right, I can see that.
All right. This isn't going at all. Oh, you can? Well, God, you're up on me
Yeah,
because I can't.
okay.
Oh, now I have. Complete
Okay.
faith in the medical profession, unvaxxed and terrified of getting really ill and needing to go to hospital. This is something that I've received in email and in YouTube comments quite a lot. What sort of solace can we give people at this point, at any rate, who might have to go to hospital through no fault of their own and be plunged into the hands of the bastards behind the masks?
Okay, first step is avoid the hospital at all costs. And the way to do that is, first of all, stop worrying. It doesn't help. Okay, your state of mind will affect your physiology. Meditate, and this is without a word of lie the best thing you can do. Meditate, and there's any number of guided meditations on YouTube, just to sit there and get into the right state, relaxed, calm, breathe. Once you've got control of yourself, then there's another little tip: look up. You know, it's physically impossible to be sad when you're looking up. They did a test at in a psychiatric ward, and a number of people there were depressed, and they had them stand around, walking around, looking up with a big smile on their face. And you cannot be depressed looking up and smiling. It's a physiology. The physiology leads the actual mental state. If you are constantly looking down, it has an impact on your physiology. So, first of all, meditate. Secondly, try to get a happy disposition and put this silly shit-eating grin on your face. Wander around for no reason, smiling, and you'll start to giggle. Next is diet. For goodness sake, folks, the best guard against hospitalization and illness is your fruit and vegetable shop. And you'll find any number of things in the fruit and vegetable shop and your local greengrocer to give your body the best chance to do what it is designed to do and does exceptionally well, and that is repair itself. So please get onto your diet.
Yep.
And in terms of exercise, you don't have to get down the gym and lift 35 tons every morning. Just going for a brisk walk, you've heard it 100 times. It helps. Just a brisk walk. And a little bit every day is better than killing yourself on the day one and then doing nothing for 3 months. Just do a little bit. Now, this is okay. Women tend to be okay with this.
Yeah.
Guys, on the other hand, we have to get fit before we go to the gym because we'll look like weeds. That's a guy thing. I understand it. Look, just get out there. Just get out there. Go for a walk around the block. A walk around the block is better than nothing. So if you take care of your meditation, your mental attitude, your diet, and a bit of exercise, guess what? You'll minimize the risk of actually having some illness that'll take you to hospital. Now, should bad luck hit you and you've got a broken arm, no amount of meditation and fresh fruit and veg is going to save you there. I get it. You've got to go to the hospital. But what you do is that you make it abundantly clear that you are not to be vaxxed, and you will get pushback because they're getting paid to vax you. Just stand your ground, stand your ground, stand your ground. That's the best advice. Because like you, I have no desire to go to the hospital nor see my family go to the hospital. And, my bride's in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And so,
that's got to be a particular concern.
Yeah, I make sure that that we don't take any unnecessary risks. But, when I'm cooking for I do all the cooking for the family, I make sure they're getting all the vitamins and minerals they can get, especially the kids, because, kids being kids, they don't like eating certain things. So I hide as much as I can in the pasta sauce. It's it's a great way of getting it. Eat onions, garlic, carrots, celery, you name it, and tomatoes, and away you go. So it's a good little way to do it. So that's the best advice. And if you take care of yourself, your body will do what it's designed to do, and you're going to be fine.
I have no doubt the girls will, with their Italian descent, will have very discerning palates, and it won't be hard to. It won't be hard to feed them all sorts of stuff hidden in the bowl, in the spaghetti bolognese.
Yeah.
I've had a number of things which I wanted to talk to you about, but because this connection is just so crap tonight, it requires me reading a lot of stuff, which I would have shown you, but now I'm going to play it off the iPad because it's less drain on the system. I don't want to read some of this stuff out, so I think I'll just leave it alone for the moment. Suffice to say, it was a conversation, or not a conversation. It's a detailed report on McDonald's. So, folks, I'll do that over on Project Matilda tomorrow if you want to come over and have a bit of a look at that. And of course, if you haven't seen the ticker running across this tonight, this particular chat, although I don't think we've done anything tonight that's going to get us kicked off, I might upload it to Project Matilda as well. So, Rick, I'm just having a bit of a glance through some of the comments and questions that were uploaded, but it seems to be having such a hard time playing. So forgive me looking down like this, folks. Natalie has sent one in that says she's been so good watching last week's show, deeply involved in the whole Trust the Plan movement in us. Meanwhile, the shifty bastards are executing their sick plans. Her family and friends are here in Australia, fighting on through it. Glad they found our show, Rick. A lot of people are very happy that they can get something from you every week. A little bit of hope, a little bit of guidance, a little bit of support. So once again, I think that is telling through in so many of the comments that we get coming through every day. People watching back, at least the ones YouTube haven't banned, the former programs we've got. I just want to mention again, folks, that we are going on the road, and Ricardo you in a live situation, you spoke before, you mentioned that you're happy to stand there. You've been in places for 4 hours answering questions to people. So at these events,
Yeah.
when we set up 5th of July on the Gold Coast at the Croatian Club, how long, will our live go a bit longer than 1 or 2 hours that night? Will you stand there or sit there, as the case is, and answer a question from every last person in the audience?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I'm more than happy to do it. But as I said, this could go for 4 hours. The last one I did in this is the last one with the whole coast up to Townsville and back. It went for 4 hours, and I had to ask people, okay, that's it. You've got to leave, folks, because they didn't want to go. They just didn't want to leave because this was their first taste of a family where, in a sense, that like-minded people that had the same values, appreciated the same virtues, they saw a plan that could actually do something, and they loved it. They loved it,
Yep.
and I threw
And
in that last one. I threw in a bit of
yeah,
some of the leadership stuff that I did to give them hope. Now, just on that, well, thank you, and let me just put this in here. Anybody that's feeling like they have lost hope, right? Straight after this, Google the Butterfly Circus. Butterfly Circus. It's a short film, but get the box of Kleenex alongside you because you'll be weeping tears of joy. It will move your hearts and give you hope. It's called the Butterfly Circus. Just give us a second. I'll make sure that just bear with me for a moment because it is so powerful.
see whether or
And
not you can find a thing.
Yeah, just hang on a tick.
Just
Yeah, the Butterfly Circuit. Yeah, it's there. It's not a problem. It goes for a little over 22 minutes. It's a short film, and I mean it,
beauty.
ladies and gentlemen. Straight after this, do nothing else. You get a box of Kleenex and watch the Butterfly Circus. Now, it's the star of the show is a gentleman called Nick Vujicic. Now, I've mentioned Nick Vujicic before. I think on this show with you, Carl. Hang on, I'll just gotta find
Yeah.
where the hell did you go? Here we are. I've mentioned Nick Vujicic before. Now, Nick, again, for the new people, is an Australian. His Serb parents came to Australia, and he was born with tetra amelia syndrome, which is an extremely rare genital disorder, where Nick had no arms and no legs, head and a torso, and sort of a little foot that he calls his chicken wing. By the
Wow.
age of 8, he wanted to commit suicide. Because imagine what this kid's life was like. And just stop for a second. I'm not trying to minimize whatever pain you're going through. All your pain is real. You have every right to be sad, angry, disappointed, frustrated, furious at the injustice that's been visited upon you. I get it. I really do. But
Yeah.
Nick, no arms, no legs. By 8, he wanted to commit suicide. How can I ever get a girlfriend? He couldn't kick a ball. He couldn't go to the beach and swim. What the hell is this guy going to do? Anyway, he stars in this film. I won't tell you any more. I don't want to spoil it for you. No spoiler alerts. But for those of you that are feeling at a loss, please watch this tonight. It will get you through the next long time. And there's a wonderful line. There's a wonderful line, and I'm not going to mention it. You'll know it when you hear it. So that's that one.
All
So
right.
please,
Excellent.
and I threw that in my talk at that last one in the sunny coast, and people were they didn't want to go. It was such a great night. They were shaking hands, and there was nothing like, I think there would have been at least over 400 people in that room that didn't want to shift. They wanted to stay there and hear more. They wanted to speak to the people next to them. It was for the first time in their lives they saw and heard a realistic and hopeful strategy that could get us out of where we are. So yeah, we'll
Yeah.
talk,
Yeah.
and we'll go for a couple of hours.
Yep. Absolutely. I can't be up there all night, folks. I've got to drive home afterwards, and everywhere I'm going is a bloody long way away from where I live. So anyway, I'm looking
Send
forward
money
to
to
this.
Carl. Send fuel money to Carl so he can get to where you are, ladies and gentlemen. Carl's reluctant to actually put his hand up and say, "I need cash." Well, I'll say it for him. Carl, where do they send the money to get you to and from to get this tour going? Oh, and in fact, I can help you
Thanks,
out.
Ricardo.
I bet you I can help you out with transport. I bet you I can help you out with transport. I'm sure there's an A1 supporter up there that he runs a transport concern, he might be able to help you out. Let's see what we can pull together. A1 family, let's help Carl get on the road and do it on more than a smell of an oily rag. It might not be with style, but at least let's get Carl on the road and let him do what he's got to do.
It's all good. I've got a little car that'll take all the computers I own, and that means we can set up a few places for people to sit down and talk to you that night. So, provided I've got an internet connection that bloody well works, which I'm working on, we'll make all that happen. The people are very, very keen to be able to ask their questions of you, and I'm just really happy to be able to come and do it. So, we do have a bit of a thing happening, a PayPal Voice of Freedom site. We're trying to raise some money for some equipment that'll enable us to have a better, stronger mobile connection and be able to let us do a few more interesting things, come to you and maybe help you out with your events, be able to give you a bit more promotion and help your community grow and join our community, so to speak. So, got some interesting things coming up on the future with that, Rick, and I'm hopeful that you'll be playing a part in that too, or at least coming on and supporting us while we get around the country and try and make life a little bit easier for people.
Well, we've got to do our continue our national tour, which was interrupted by the Canberra gig and then the election. So we lost about 6 months on our scheduled tour. We already did, as I said, northern New South Wales and Queensland. That was the coast. We fit in southern New South Wales and Victoria, and we're about to kick off around the rest of the country. Tassie was supposed to be next, and then NT, SA, and WA. But again, the premiers were doing their silliness with the Canberra kicked in, the election, and then the premiers are doing their nonsense with entry and exit across borders. So we'll be doing that anyway, Carl. We've got to we'll continue getting around the countryside as part of A1, and that's the beauty of having this organisation that is actually actively involved. And I've got to tell you, if you don't like me, you don't trust me, that is absolutely fine. Come along, ask the question. And I mean it. Ask as many tough questions as you like. And you don't have to believe me. You don't have to like me. You don't even have to vote for me. It doesn't matter. Just get up and take control of your life, ladies and gentlemen. That's the whole purpose of this whole operation.
Absolutely. Oscar, thank you very much for your super chat. Sent $20, just likes to keep us going. So I appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. Look, I've gone an hour and 17 minutes and 23 seconds, and I haven't mentioned the Aussie Cossack. I think I've done pretty well given the day I've had with the Aussie Cossack. So where we're at, the Aussie Cossack is going to be in court, Burwood Local Court, on the 30th, on Thursday. When I say he's going to be there, he'll be there in spirit only because they're going to video link him in from Long Bay Jail and have their conversation with him then. Now, there's a school of thought, Rick, that he might be getting out, and the last thing that the court wanted would be to have him standing on the court steps with 1,000 people out the front conducting a news conference or having a speech. Do you think there's much truth to that side of the rumor? And of course, we've heard that the Stand for Cossack today, the lawyers have advised us that maybe we shouldn't be turning up to stand for him. You were, of course, I think, going to come along for that on Thursday. Where do you stand with all of this now?
Yeah, I heard, I didn't see it myself, but I advised that Katia, that's Simeon's wife. It's her call, ladies and gentlemen. This is very important stuff. It's her call, and my understanding is she said, please don't come. Let's keep it nice and quiet. You can still give your support to him, just don't turn up and muddy the water because this is a very delicate moment, and this has real consequences for him and his bride. So please,
it does.
And this, I'm fairly sure. I think she spoke to Maria Z, and that was the point. There are other ways you can still do it. People of faith, go to church and pray for him. Intercessional prayer works, ladies and gentlemen. It does. And the good news is most people I'm talking to believe in over 50% are Christian and 70+% believe in a higher power. So please get out there and pray. And that's as good as being there because, again, it doesn't interfere. And it's Katia's call. If Katia wants us there, we'll be there. If she wants us to stay away, just to, again, not to muddy the water, because this is real consequences for them both, then we should respect it. It's her call. And at this stage, my understanding is she doesn't want us there. So if that's the case, I won't be there. We'll go to the local church. It's only 300 meters down the road, and we'll pray, and we'll pray for a miracle that he gets released.
Yep, absolutely. Steve O, thank you very much for your super sticker. Very, very flash. I don't understand what half these things are, super stickers and that. I haven't managed to figure all this out yet. So if I get it wrong, or I'm meant to be playing something and I'm not, then for God's sake, let me know. And William and Kay Dunn, thank you too. That was another sticker. So Ricardo, Aussie Cossack has been in trouble because of the speech that he made at the rally in Sydney that you attended. There was a lot of kerfuffle around that speech. You were captured having an animated conversation with him off the stage afterwards, and people were saying then, oh, Ricardo and Aussie Cossack have broken up, they're not friends. And yet 2 days later or 3 days later, when he had to appear in court, and we put the call out for people to be at court, who was the first person there? You were. So what are you expecting out of Thursday? Has he served his time yet, do you think, or are they going to punish him further?
I don't know, and I don't think I can speculate. I really don't know. I'm just going to pray that he's released. I mean, Blind Freddie can see the injustice of it, the immorality of it. So I don't know, mate. I really don't know. I hope he's released. I just don't, and we'll be praying for that. And in relation to that exchange, this is the real world. This is the real world, folks. I mean, give me a break. Energetic words, that was nothing. Men speak to men in manly ways, and I prefer a man to walk up to me, to my face, and tell me, rather than these slimy Masonic filth and do it behind your back. Now we know, for example, and I've lived in police states before, so I know what it's like. That everything that is said in front of every laptop and every device is recording you, audio and visual, 24/7. And we work at home on the operating principle that everything we say and do here is recorded by the filth in Canberra. And we're quite open about it. So they've heard every loving embrace and every energetic discussion my bride and I have had, And today, if they were listening, they would have heard my detailed explanations about the definitions of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and the dividend, the divisor, and the quotient when we're doing the division. And they would have listened to all of that too. So we don't much care. This is the real world. Does anyone really think that politicians in the past spoke with rounded vowels at every opportunity? No, this is the 21st century. Every second is recorded somewhere. And by the way, Masonic filth, we have everything. Nothing can stop what's coming. So, sidebar comment. So this is the real world. Get used to it. Cossack and I, we just had an exchange of views in a manly, direct way. We hadn't broken up at all. My respect for him is still as immense as always was. Just because I raised my voice at somebody doesn't mean it's all over, Red Rover. No, it's time for adults to be adults and understand that this is the real world. It's not the nonsense they try to portray on TV.
Yep. Yeah. And I can tell you from somebody who was sort of behind the scenes but involved from a distance in what was going on there. The Cossack himself was mortified that he felt that you'd been embarrassed, and he'd sort of led to that embarrassment. He was very upset by all of that, and that was never his intention. I know that you know that. The people seem to have a few problems with that, and on Thursday, should we be getting our prayers answered and he is released, then I hope people will have the good grace to leave him alone for a day or two. I'm sure the Aussie Cossack, being the Aussie Cossack, will see a live out of him at some stage, not long after he gets out. But I think he needs to have a little bit of time with friends and family and his wife, particularly after not having seen her for, this whole time that he's been locked away. We will keep the postcard campaign in our back pocket because he may well require a few more of them yet. He might be going back and staying in there. When he comes out, Rick, where do you see his future? Is he a freedom fighter or is he going to be a law changer?
Both. Both. I can see this is just a temporary interruption. I think he'll be back in the saddle fast, and he'll be giving stickers in his inimitable style. As I said, this guy is
Yeah.
the provocateur par excellence. I mean, I love what this guy does. I mean, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't want to do it. This guy is just
Yeah.
a monster. I love it, and I love what he does. And as I said, yeah, he'll probably have a quiet month or three, and then I reckon he'll be back in the saddle, and away we go. This, ladies and gentlemen, wars aren't fought within 90 commercial minutes with a stirring
No.
soundtrack. It's real life. It's real life.
Yeah.
There are bumps and bruises.
Yeah.
You fall down, you get up, you make a mistake, you change, you learn, you get better. As I was, I was talking to the West Australian crew a couple of days back. I did a recording for them. They were going through some dramas over there. And I said, look, I'm not ready and worthy of leading Australia, and neither are you. All of us are growing every day, but you do the best you can where you are with what you've got.
Yeah.
You know, am I afraid of taking the job? Absolutely not. We've been working our backsides off to get as ready as we can. But we're all growing, we're all changing, we're all developing every minute of every day. You know, hopefully
Yeah.
I'm better tomorrow than I was yesterday. And that's all we do. And that's what everybody
Yeah.
can do. And so this is real life. Just keep going, keep plugging ahead. You know, this isn't Call of Duty. You don't respawn after 15 minutes. This is the dangerous life. It really is. And yet,
Yeah.
man, oh man, I've got to tell you, I don't need to watch movies anymore inspiring leadership and you know, a small band of warriors fighting an immense evil. We live this daily. And so we spend a lot more time trying to watch something funny just to lighten the mood, because from the moment we're up in the morning to the moment we go to sleep, we live and breathe this stuff. And we love it in the sense that we wouldn't be doing anything else. Wouldn't be
Well,
doing
in
anything
fact,
else.
I feel exactly the same way, and I've had talks with others in this sort of movement too, where we get out of bed, the first thing we look at is the sources that we go to and we trust, and then we go and try and find some cross referencing on all of that, and we do that all day, every day. A lot of people send us information. In fact, I shared some today, um, and information that ordinarily I would never get access to or get to see. Uh, you've got to wonder whether or not where it's coming from. You check the sources of where it's coming from, whether or not it's worthwhile passing on, who it should be passed on to, all this sort of crap. So last Sunday I gave up and went and saw Top Gun, because you've got to have a bit of day off. I don't have a shed. I know you've got a shed. So I went and saw Top Gun. Have you been to see Top Gun yet?
No, not yet. I'm not a big fan of Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I kind of figured there might be that, but I thought the flying might get you there. But
Oh no, the movie. I remember the first movie, and it was. I love the film, and it's probably a great film, and I'll probably see it at some point. But he's one of those guys that the film has to be absolutely outstanding for me to tolerate this. 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 Oh, I just don't like the guy.
well, I have to say, put the guy aside. Whoever was flying those aircraft in those stunt sequences, absolutely amazing.
So worth seeing, Carl.
Oh yeah, mate. Yeah, for a man who's actually been in an F111 and an F18, I yes, was drooling on the floor. It was not a good look in the cinema. Thankfully, it was dark. Um, just having a bit of a look down the. Somebody's asking for an email address, so that'll be Melissa from Bundaberg. Melissa from Bundaberg. Voice of Freedom HQ@gmail.com. Send me that. We'll have to set up something separate for your common law night, because we won't be doing it on the same night that we're talking to Ricardo. Yep, I'm happy to come up and do something with that. It should prove to be an interesting night. The last common law night I went to, everybody walked in with smiles and walked out very sad faced. So don't know. We'll see how we go. I do have another bloke I can introduce you to for common law stuff, which will probably leave you with a sadder face, but a lot more detail. So I'll see what I can do with that. So Carl, my email address is voiceofreedomhq@gmail.com. I'll get that out eventually. So Rick, we've been going an hour and a half. I'm just having a glance down to see what questions I haven't asked you that popped up in the chat earlier. Linda earlier, will Australia be moving to a gold-backed currency?
That's certainly our plan. Excuse me. That's certainly our plan. We control our currency. That's the Australia One policy position. Not necessarily gold back, because we don't have enough gold. We've certainly got excellent reserves, but we don't have enough gold above ground to cover the number of A dollars that are out there. But our policy is to have it backed by real, say a basket of metals with real intrinsic worth, gold, silver, platinum, palladium, a few others, in order to make sure that this dollar bill, this new Australian dollar bill, is actually transferable. You can actually hand it in and get your silver, gold, or whatever the hell it is that's backing it up. But there'll be real assets. So fiat currency is out, sound money is back in, and our policies to make sure we control the printing of that money, the control of the money, to make sure that that is it. And the reason for that is quite simple. This is a national security issue. If you let someone control your currency, you are no longer a sovereign nation. And anybody that knows the whole Rothschild story and the Fed and all that sort of stuff, you know that to be fact. And so we're going to make sure we claw that back and we control it. And it's going to be the most sought after currency, because right now, you know, the petrodollar, the US dollar, is the reserve currency of the planet, apart from the BRICS, who have decided to go their own way. That's BRIC, not BRICS. But we want to make sure that Australia has such a solid currency that everybody wants it. It is tradable. It's like cryptos. If you want to trade crypto, fill your boots. It's your money. Do what you like with it. None of our business until it starts to affect our national sovereignty. But if we've got a strong A dollar backed by real assets, as I said, it'll just be the marketplace rather than being forced to use the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. Like Russia, will be demanding, you want our resources, you pay in Australian dollars. You want to pay in Australian dollars, you're going to do it in gold. We're going to build up our gold reserves. We've got great reserves in this country of precious metals and a range of other minerals and ores. So we're going to be in great financial shape. Oh, just on that, while I'm here, our tax plan, and Carl, I remember we were talking about it, and I went through the numbers with you, where we'll have a 2% expenditure tax, where there's no income tax, no fringe benefit tax, no capital gains tax, no stamp duty, no payroll, all that's gone. And we have a 2% expenditure tax, meaning when you spend money, you get 2%. That's it. So whenever you sell your house, you get every cent. When you get paid at work, you get every cent. And people are saying that can't be true. And I said, I gave you the numbers, the big numbers, and it adds up. Now, one of our supporters was watching that particular interview, and this guy's a money man. He's a trader. And he knows the financial system back to. No, can't be done. This sounds too good to be true. Anyway, I got this excited telephone call from Alex, and he went, mate, not only is it true, I've got a few tips where we can refine it and make it even better. So what we're going to do is we're going to get, I'm going to do an interview with him next week, and I'll give you a shout. It'll be after Tuesday, I think. But either way, I'll give you a shout out and just be on, you want to watch that, because I'll be interviewing Alex. And Alex is going to take it through. Now, what I've asked Alex to do is speak at two levels. One, for the financial experts. So it's like when I was interviewing the doctors about the vax. Speak to your peers in the language that they understand. Don't dumb it down to the point where they turn off. So he's going to be speaking to the financial experts in a way that they understand, because they will get it. And then the second group is the rest of us. So we understand in principle what he's talking about and how it's going to function. But this guy, he was so pumped. He was getting goosebumps. He said Australia is going to become the world's the world's financial powerhouse. All the Cayman Islands and all these tax havens will evaporate because there's no need for them, because it won't be any income tax here. It'll be an expenditure tax. Everybody wins, from Jacko and Norell, who are earning a wage, through to the corporations. Everything is so much easier for everybody, because, and people say, well, how is that possible? Because you and us and all of us have been robbed blind for decades. Just robbed, just purely robbed. And so everyone benefits. So just that's a shout out for the interview with Alex. I'll let everyone know when it's going to be on. But you want to listen to that, folks, because this is the future.
Absolutely.
See, that's what A1's up to. We're not just sitting here moaning about the problems. We're actually got plans, and we're ready to roll this stuff out at the first opportunity. When you hear Alex talk, you'll get so pumped. You will be so excited, because this guy, if he's excited about it, and he knows the financial world back to front, and by the end of it, as I said, all the financial gurus, you'll know that what we are saying is absolutely doable. Not only that, this is going to be the richest country on the planet.
So we've had a lot of trolls just on this subject in the chat or in replies to me, since our first conversation about that, claiming or crying a whole 2% can't be done thing. Not one of them. I've challenged everyone to provide me a reason why it cannot work, and all I get is more crying, squealing. But they cannot actually present a solid reason as to why it will not work. And you're quite right. We have been robbed for years and years and years, centuries, in fact. So it must be a little bit hard for people to understand what you're saying. You know, the 2% tax. Although they understood the 10% GST pretty easy.
Yeah, well, once again, very
That was going
quickly,
the opposite direction.
look, non-cash transactions daily is around, really easy numbers, $250 billion a day gets transactions. None of that is taxed. What's taxed? These pindicks in the comment section, who probably never passed year 4 maths. The slave wages, the people who get taxed on a fortnightly basis, the pay-as-you-go types, you've been carrying the tax burden of this country forever. The other people haven't paid. What's happening now? Every one of those transactions gets the 2% hit. That means that we get $1.3 trillion a year. Now, currently,
Wow.
the tax receipts, federal and state tax receipts for 2018, 2019 was $500 billion. And our expenditure was 750 billion. So we're 250 billion in the red under the current system. This levels it out. So now we are over, what was it, 750. So what? Oh, I don't know. Nearly $500 billion in the black, 500 billion in the black, just by now putting that 2% tax on non-cash transactions. And that's all it is. And everybody wins. So once again, the kids in the basement whining, you'll benefit too. And that's okay. Don't have to say thanks. Just sit back. It's your money. You've been robbed as well. You've been robbed of an education, which is pretty sad. I'd go back to your school and ask for your money back because you obviously didn't learn a bloody thing.
One of the true. One of the questions popped up earlier on the screen was: does A1 have a group on the central coast of New South Wales? Is
Oh,
there
yeah. We got a lot of excited people down the Central Coast, Newcastle. We got some fantastic
Yep.
people there. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and again, let me just jump in quickly, just so people know about that we are doing things and how A1 works and what's important to us. We've got a guy called Matt who runs a group in Newcastle, and he's helping people get off the grid and get independent. And he's helping people, you know, if you grow tomatoes, how about you make some tomato sauce? And we've got so many different ways of doing business that gives power to the people. And Matt spoke last weekend we had a small get together up that way. And man, oh man, the imagination and drive of your average Australian is fantastic. And A1 just taps into it and says, go for it, folks. You want to help people get off the grid? More power to you. Away you go.
Yeah. And there are plenty of other trades getting involved in that kind of thing too. Geodomes are offering all sorts of solutions for people on properties up here because the housing crisis has been so significant and is ongoing. Noosa Council recently approved the development of 34 tiny homes on, I think it's about 20 acres that a fella owns up there. He's going to install the tiny homes, put the driveways in, put the toiletries in, and charge people whatever it is going to be rent for their tiny home, all inclusive. So power, electricity, if you like, all your internet, all sorted for the one price. So it's great to see that sort of development's sort of starting here in Queensland, if only to help try and alleviate the housing crisis. That could be slowed down by what's going on with interest rates at the moment. Lotus wants to know, can the banks actually be stopped from increasing rates?
The interest rates are by and large controlled by the US Fed. It's the price of money. It's a complex question. The situation will be such that we intend to ensure that the banks never again hold the whip hand in relation to this. Now, if you go back 100 years when the Commonwealth Bank was first kicked off, they said that the commercial banks, they used to print their own money in those days, by the way.
Right.
It would cause terrible competition for the banks. Never did, but it provided affordable interest loans to all sorts of business and individuals, and the money it earned on these very low interest loans was sufficient to fund a lot of major activities, including the construction of a major railway line, which is the only one that never ran into deficit, never needed a loan, and never ran at a loss. And so there is a role for a genuine Commonwealth bank, because once again, banks are a threat to national security, and we have to make sure that we have the means by which we never again allow these people to control us the way they do. And the fact that the Fed it's as federal as Federal Express, which is an old line, it's not mine, obviously. Why the hell should a private bank have any say in the conduct of a sovereign nation's currency and business? It shouldn't. And so there are means by which we can reintroduce old ideas that worked before, and then were intentionally destroyed because the banksters wanted to make sure that they had the whip hand over us. That's never going to happen again. There are so many little ways in which Australia has been undermined and demoralized, and there are very simple ways around it. The banks, that's a business. They can borrow and lend money. That's the whole point, because you need to borrow money because you need big jobs, need large amounts of money, and few people have got enough to do it all on their own. So there's nothing wrong with a bank as long as it is doing the right thing. Second thing about a bank, one of the rules of contract law is that it must be very clear. But if you look at the bank's contracts with people about interest rates on their houses, there is no certainty, there is no sureties, no guarantee. So it's actually not a contract. So how about the banks play a real game and say, you want to borrow money, here's the rate, and it doesn't change, because this variable rate is actually wrong in law.
Yeah, right. Yep.
I'm guessing not too many politicians have told you that you've been stitched up. The whole game it's rigged against you. As was that American comedian? It's a big club and you're not in it.
Yeah, George Carlin.
That's him. Oh, I love him. Yeah. He's just brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sort of hoping that he's one of the ones that comes back to life just between you being the gatepost.
Oh man, can you imagine?
Yeah, it'd be very good. Here's a question from Paul. Are you going to get Australia's gold back from England? We should probably explain how England got Australia's gold in the first place.
Oh, look, there are so many of these issues that have to be resolved. Now, the Australian gold in England one, I don't know enough about that to give you an informed comment. But there are so many. What was it said the other day? The evidence. Robert David Steele, ex-CIA, apparently whacked. I think he's just in witness protection.
Yeah.
He said the evidence is there that trillions of dollars have been stolen from the people and laundered. Trillions.
Yep.
That money's got to come back home. It's going to come back home. And whether England has our gold or not, or who knows? Look, there's a gold mine outside Canberra. Apparently, the Chinese are madly digging as much of the stuff out as they can and shipping it to Beijing. Now you can't do it; it's illegal, and yet they're doing it. And so there are so many of these stories, and the answer's the same: we'll get it back. You'll get back what is yours.
I can't help but think with, and I don't know whether or not you watch too much of the Gold Rush TV show, but Parker Schnabel looks like a pretty good gold miner. He does well in the Yukon. We could probably do with more of his ilk coming out to Australia and teaching us how to extract our gold.
We know how to mine it. It's just the politicians have sold it off to the crooks. That's your problem.
Yeah.
But just let me just raise something here. Can I just jump in quickly, because all these ideas I wanted to raise with you, and I don't want to let them go. Please. People say, well, how are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? You can't do it. You can't do it. Well, I'll tell the story I've told 100 times before, but I'll do it again. The Gordian knot, long time ago, time of Alexander the Great, the Gordian knot was this very complex knot on a length of rope, and great leaders and commanders would be presented with the Gordian knot to see how good they were. Could they untangle the Gordian knot? And nobody ever could. Alexander the Great took one look, pulled out his sword, cut it in half, and walked off. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're not going to play. You never fight on ground of the enemy's choosing. You never accept their terms and conditions. Now they say, well, how can you do all this thing? Well, okay, here's an idea, and this is a very simple one, and this is going to send a shiver over anybody that's accepted the people's coin over the last long time. We know that there is no law in this country, that the government is actually unconstitutional, and that's demonstrably true. They just have no more right to be there than any average 151 people at the local pub. So They appoint judges, and
Exactly
judges
right.
use police, right? Now, Carl, you tell me, imagine if I, Ricardo Bosi, put on a black gown and a wig, and then you put on a blue shirt with a badge and a gun and walked up and said, I'm a policeman, and you dragged someone before me and said, I'm a judge and I'm going to lock you up for 10 years. Now, if you and I, as just average schmucks, did that, we'd be charged with fraud and deprivation of liberty and kidnapping and all sorts of things, correct? Well, guess what?
Yes, absolutely.
Every judge in this country, because they've been appointed unlawfully, is guilty of fraud. We don't have to introduce any new laws. Every copper has no more authority than a Walmart security guard.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? Every one of them is for the
Absolutely.
high jump, the whole lot. And so when that sort of Damocles drops, it's going to take everybody out. The world is
So
going to change. We are not playing by their
the
rules
people,
anymore, ladies and
the people are 100% on your side with this, but how I mean, the question people have been asking now and been asking for a long time on a daily basis, that sort of Damocles, it must be hanging by the thinnest possible thread because the patience of the people certainly is.
It is, and we've mentioned this before.
Yeah.
It's a con that everybody keeps going because they know the consequences of the truth coming out. That's why everybody, the judges, the politicians, the lawyers, the bureaucrats, all of them know that when this collapses, the whole house of cards comes down. Nothing will be left standing. This is the beginning of a new world. See, people don't understand war. It's not like TV. Excuse me. It is a long, brutal business. Now, you think about the American Revolution where they threw the Brits out. They fought a war. Men died. It was brutal. And then they had to recreate an entirely brand new nation from that. Now, we're lucky. We don't have the shooting. That's great. But we're going to go through that same process. And as we said last week, there's going to be a measured approach where there's this caretaker period where we get things in place so we can actually get a lawful government that represents the people. And we start the process. And it's not going to be done in 2.5 minutes. I can tell you what will be done as a first priority, though. There's two elements of health: the psychological and physical health of the people and the economic health of the nation. Because you need both
Yeah.
of those. You need both of those up and running very, very quickly. And we can do that. And people will be so excited about the possible future that we will just continue to go from strength to strength. We are on the verge of creating a brand new Australia, ladies and gentlemen, not because we want to, because we have to, because the old
Yep.
one's dead. We will take the best from the past. We don't have to reinvent perfectly round wheels. We don't need a new form of
No.
mathematics. We've got the brilliant lessons from common law. We've got Greek philosophy and maths, Roman jurisprudence, English common law rights. We've got all of that. And we can draw on all of that history of ours and create this brand new nation because we have to. We have no choice because, as I said, the entire system is fake.
Well, that has to be based. The whole system has to be based on a brotherhood of us, doesn't it? Rather than a bunch of politicians we appoint to look over us. We have to start taking an active, a much more active interest in our futures as local communities, as wider communities, as states, as federal territories, as a nation. Um, and the unification of us has to start with exactly with what you're saying, Rick. There seems to be such a huge swell of support for it. It's hard for those of us that are in the movement and do support those sort of words to believe that we aren't in the majority these days. But clearly, we're not there yet. How much longer? How thin is that bit of string hanging onto the sword of Damocles? How much longer do we have to wait?
Well, as you know, mate, picking a time is tough, but we could be
Yeah,
months away. We could be months away.
yeah. I think the gut feeling with many people at the moment, and looking through the intel channels on Telegram, uh, the tempo of intel has lifted significantly, and the quality of the intel has lifted significantly. And by quality, I mean not where it's coming from or who it's coming from, but what the intel is, what they're telling us in those drops. Do you feel that is a bit of an indicator or significant?
Oh, very significant. As we said at the outset, Roe versus Wade, the Second Amendment, the prayer, So it was prayer guns and abortion all went the correct direction. Let's say the correct decision. And so once again, if people can remember where they were last year, this time last year, how bad did it look? It was bloody awful. You never heard one negative thing about the government. You had one negative thing. We had police brutally throwing men, women, and children to the ground and in the back of divvy vans, and there was genuine terror, and rightly so. And we said, get to the end of the year because things will change at the beginning of next year, and they did. And I said it'll get worse and get better simultaneously, and it did. And we had the rallies up in Canberra, which were just brilliant, and they shot us with the energy weapons, which was not so cool. And now the stories are coming out. Mainstream media is starting to tell the story because they're being told to. So, and now, as you say, it is picking up quite quickly. In the next few weeks and months, ladies and gentlemen, watch this space. Just try to remember how bad it was a year ago, how bloody awful it was a year ago.
And just try and remember what the narrative was a year ago. There was nothing about freedom for the people. It was suppression. Wear your masks. Do not go outside. Do not travel further than 5 kilometers from home. And if you dare to try and think you can organize a protest, then we don't care that you're a 7 or 8 month pregnant woman in your pajamas. When the police come calling to arrest you, they will take you. That's where we were 12 months ago, 12, 18 months ago. So now we've got Joe Hildebrand turning around and making excuses for the left well, not excuses, but sort of saying, oh, maybe they didn't do that right. Maybe we did move too quickly. Maybe we should have looked a bit deeper. I nearly fell over when I saw him saying that on the television the other day. And then there is the likes of the mob that you regularly cite on Sky. They're all starting to, question the direction and the intensity of the messaging that we've been undergoing for the last 2 years. I love the way that and I'm trying to deliberately phrase it like they do. Yes, the intensity and direction of the messaging you received in the last 2 years may have been erroneous, meaning we got the whole fucking thing completely wrong and we told you lies.
These news presenters, they're as fragile as Lalique Crystal. They're amazing when you meet them. And look, I grew up professionally in a fairly robust environment. You couldn't afford to be a hothouse orchid. But these people are just, it's amazing. Their reputation is everything, and it cannot be tarnished to the least degree. And they live in terror of the truth coming out. We don't give a rat's ass about the truth. The truth is the truth is the truth. You're going to get it. So you're right. When I mentioned those 3 individuals last time, that's the channel they're coming from. One's terrified, one's about to be terrified, and one thinks that they're protected. They're all going to get a very rude shock very shortly.
I'm going to have a crack at playing you something which I fell over when this was sent to me during. Now, this apparently happened on the Today program, and I think is a great indication of the way that the narrative is slowly being nudged into a complete 180 degree from what we've seen previously. So just fingers crossed, let's see whether or not this will play. And
interesting, yeah. But I mean, why would anyone believe that the world is being run by lizard people who shapeshift?
During coronavirus, we've been bombarded with information about science and healthcare and who's to blame, and it's complicated with different types of lizard people. So it's, this sort of, so there are apparently different kinds of lizard people. They're from different planets and galaxies, and they have different agendas.
Now that I know I'm sitting next to a lizard person.
Well, Carl would, in the QAnon mythos, would definitely be a lizard person. Anybody who's been in the media for more than 10 minutes generally has a conspiracy theory attached to them. And
I don't have a long enough time.
They're amazing. Oh, yeah, but you're hiding it from us, Carl. You see, it's all part. You'll turn around and we'll see the time.
So there you go. Now, I believe that woman has written a book that sort of admonishes anybody who follows Q or is a QAnon, and has literally taken the piss out of them, and so they've probably had her on in that vein of taking the piss. However, I don't ever recall hearing an interview about reptilians living under our feet on Australian television ever, much less than the last 2 years. And yet I have heard, read, seen many things in the last 2 years, not on mainstream media, all about that subject. So is that another indication that the worm is turning?
Absolutely. This is stuff that wouldn't have got airplay. Whether you believe it or not is entirely up to you, not you personally.
Yeah.
And people can look at it and laugh, or look at it and believe it. That's okay. But the fact
Yeah.
that it's on TV, ladies and gentlemen, things are changing so quickly. It's breathtaking. Well, buckle up. This is going to be a very fast ride.
Yeah, a very quick one indeed. So have you covered off your list of things that you wanted to get through tonight?
There was one thing I did want to cover, just a follow up from last week. Where are we? Got to get my.
Absolutely. I'm just going to
Keep
flick
it
up
going.
some of the comments.
No.
You
I
must
just
get
need.
into the society one night. We'll have a chat about that.
I just want to follow up last week because when I gave a touch up to the West Australian Department for Protecting Pedophiles, and they contacted us and said, "Oh, can we have a meeting, please?" Now, isn't that interesting? I'm nobody from nowhere.
Yeah,
And
right.
who the hell am I? I'm nobody. And yet, apparently, they heard the comments and they said, "Let's have a catch up." And so, Chief of Staff, my bride, had a meeting with them, and I'd like to give you a little, excuse me, a debrief on what was said. Now, she spoke with Angelo Barbaro, Director of Working with Children Screening Unit at the Department of Communities, and this was on Monday the 27th, and Helen Shields, the Manager of Community Engagement Team. That deals with organisations who are trying to get their working with children's checks. Now, we are one of those organisations. That's why we had difficulty, because they said we can't get it because we don't qualify. And we said, well, we do qualify because, there's going to be a youth session. We're going to be teaching kids about the Constitution, about what is lawful, civics, things like that. Plus, we're going to have events where kids will be in not necessarily the primary attendees, but they'll certainly be there. And we want to make sure that our people are actually cleared, cleared to be there and actually to do so. Sidebar comments. Somebody made the comment earlier that working with children's check isn't worth the paper it's printed on. I agree, but it's better than nothing. And I think I'd rather have someone that's gone through some measure of check rather than no measure of check. Because I can tell you who wants us to drop it, and it's the Liberal Nationals. They keep saying, please drop your working with children's check requirements. Now, why would they want that? So anyway, back to the oh yeah, I could tell you some stories, mate. So back to the issue. The exemptions we highlighted previously were, for example, if you're flying in to do a job, you don't need, for less than 2 weeks, you don't need a working with children's check, which effectively means you can fly and rape as many kids as you like and fly back out again, and the WA government doesn't care. There's an exemption, 2 weeks, Go figure. And just something on pedos, just so you're aware of it. They always travel a good distance from their home base to do what they do. If they live in Wollongong, they'll go up the north coast. If they live in the north coast, they'll go down to Wollongong. You learn a lot of stuff you don't want to know. They're extremely loyal. They will never break ranks. They work in small cells. You have those that gather the kids. You have those that rape the kids, and they return the favor. They're very tight. So that's just one. So 2 weeks, fly in, 2 weeks, fly out. You don't need a working with children's check. This is an alarm bell to anybody. Blind Freddie can see that this is it's almost designed to assist the pedophiles. Next, if you're a volunteer, you're not paid, and there's an event, and you're just helping out, but you're not actually paid, the presenter of that event has to have the working with children's check, but you as a volunteer don't have to. So you turn up to this event with your kids, and you could be surrounded by pedos. So that's a bit of a worry. Third one, and then my wife had the chief of staff had the discussion, and here's how it works in WA. You want to get a working with children's check, you go to the post office, and on the spot you will receive a piece of paper which is a conditional approval to work with children. On the spot. And then the investigation starts, and that can take weeks and weeks and weeks. They wouldn't answer during this interview how long it would take, but we have other sources of information, and it can take weeks and weeks and weeks to get this checked out. And if something is amiss and they decide they're not going to give you the working with children check, then it's cancelled. But in the meantime, again, you've got this conditional working with children's check. It's like getting a driver's license when you apply. Here's a license. If you have an accident, we might take it off you. Well done.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you go to the post office and you apply, and you've got to work with children's check. The discussion with them was so ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous, that it is clear that the West Australian government, and now you got to point the finger at the people responsible. And there are a couple of groups with different degrees of culpability. The politicians who write the legislation, right? They're obviously no good. And the borough actually admitted that the lawyers tell us to put a lot of this stuff in. So here we have lawyers setting up the rules by which the West Australian people get to see whether they need to are working with children's check or not. Now, we can't vote for the lawyers. We can't vote them in or out. So the people have to be held to account. And then you've got the actual administrators themselves. And again, blind Freddie can look at this and say, gentlemen, something's wrong. And these guys, to my mind, in my opinion, are your classic red hats. These are the mindless drones that'll do whatever the government says to do, and don't have the wit to actually say, hang on, this is wrong. I could be participating quite gross. And so their attempt to speak to us and allay our fears did exactly the opposite. Exactly the opposite. It just made it more dangerous to our mind about the system in WA. And we don't care that we have 7 different jurisdictions in which we have to get different processes for working with children's sex. That's not an issue. We'll just do what we've got to do. But they don't care. They don't care at all. So there you go. The West Australian Department for Assisting Pedophiles, with laws written by the politicians that apparently it appears to protect pedophiles, lawyers that are helping them along, and the mindless drones, the red hats that are just implementing it and don't care that what they're implementing doesn't make sense. So there you go. No. There's Australian politics and bureaucracy and law in a nutshell.
Yep, I just stick my hand out at the end of the month for the paycheck. Thank you very much.
There you go.
And it'll be a good one, I have no doubt. So, Rick, during the week, quite surprisingly, there was 3 new Q drops that fell, or were they? Caused a lot of interest. Some people don't believe that it was the real Q making these drops. Many other people do, and in fact, there has been a Q app site that's been set up as well. qalerts.app will get you there if you go and have a look on your web browser. qalerts.app. So, what do you make of these latest Q drops?
Oh, I'm just looking for a book. I see if I can find it before we go any further. I'm actually paying attention to it very carefully because here's why. A lot of people, that you can believe what you want and don't. We look at intelligence. We operate on, as I've said this before, 3 concentric circles, things that we can verify as true, and we predicate our plans based on verifiable intelligence. The next ring is likely to be true, and so we've got to be ready to adapt to that. And the outside is on the periphery is stuff that might be highly outrageous, but the possibility of it true is so impactful that we need to be aware of it as well, and we're poised to move. So we need to move on what we know. Having said that, a lot of people said, the Q drops are nonsense because the dates never worked. Well, what they don't know is that they weren't dates. People mistook the numbers and read them as dates. What they are chapter and paragraph numbers from a book called The Law of War 2015, U.S. Department of Defense. Wow. And each one of those things that appeared to be a date was actually a chapter and paragraph number. And if you read the Q drop and then go to that chapter and paragraph number, it all makes very clear communications. So all you people that disbelieve it, that's fine. I get it. I'm pretty untrusting too. But there's a gentleman in New Zealand, and I've boosted him before, I've mentioned him. This guy has gone through the whole lot. He admits that he didn't actually come up with he didn't recognize it, but he plowed through all the Q drops, aligning them with every paragraph and chapter paragraph number in the Law of War manual Department of Defense, 2015. You can Google it and download it. We printed it out. It makes great reading, folks. If you want to know what the future might hold, there's your nightly reading, and it's in typical military writing, so it is clear, concise, and very easy to follow, as opposed to most legal jargon, which is designed to obfuscate the truth. And so this New Zealand, I can't remember his name.
Just say the name of it one more time.
Yep, Law of War 2015. US Department of Defense. So just Google US DOD, Law of War 2015. It's a big, we printed it out, and it's about that thick. We got it in two halves. And the numbers that people thought were dates are actually chapter and paragraph numbers in the Law of War. And so, we're, in answer to your question, of course we're paying attention to Q. Of course we are. Because here's the thing. If you want to know what you should look at, have a look at what the mainstream media is bitch slapping. That's a bit of a clue. I might want to check that out. And if the mainstream media is boosting it, you want to do a U-turn and walk away.
Yep, absolutely. Rima wants to know, where did all these pedophiles come from? I'm not sure why she thinks you'll know that.
Well, there's a couple of answers to that question. It's a good question. Let me deal with the prison system first. Boys particularly, but girls as well, are broken when sexual intercourse or sexual predation occurs at a very early age. They're not psychologically mature enough to understand what's happening. They become overly sexualized, and the source of that sexual activity can shift them, can bend them any way they want. And so there's a lot more of this stuff going on, and it goes on. And unfortunately, fortunately, I've met some lovely people who had the unfortunate experience of being abused as children. If it's bad enough and brutal enough, it'll break them. Like Chopper Read. Chopper Read was a violent and brutal man, and he was abused as a boy, and this was the logical consequence of it. And most of your recidivist criminals, the ones that will not turn over a new leaf and go straight. And here's the dirty little secret that the Masonic filth don't want to tell you: is most of those broken men were broken as boys and raped. And they trust nobody, no time, never, and never will. Now, the rest of them, there's a lot of this going on that gets covered up again by Masonic filth. And that's why. Because if we didn't have the Masonic filth in the judiciary, the constabulary, and the polity, then the truth would come out, and these people would be dealt with the way that they should be dealt with, but they're not. And so it continues and it grows. Now, not everybody that's a victim of child sexual abuse becomes an abuser. They don't. That's just fact. That's what the numbers say. But a number are so broken that they just do it, and that's why you get underaged boys and girls that'll actually rape others. They just imitate the behavior, not knowing what's going on, because they are at such a precious age. And so it continues, and it continues and grows as a group because there is no consequence for the action. The victim is not believed, and the perpetrators keep going. Now, the perpetrators will generally abuse between 100 and 200 kids before they're caught. Now, this is not because they can't find them. It's because the police, the judges, the lawyers, and the politicians make sure they don't get caught. It's part of this whole racket, this Masonic filth. So there you go.
And occasionally they have to sacrifice one for the good of everybody else, but it's a bit like it's smuggling in large-scale drugs into the country. You let 200 kilos get caught at the border, and it's the 200 tons that gets through that you're really concerned about.
And that's exactly it. They did that not long ago when we were up in, I think it was when we were still in Canberra, and we were pushing the pedo thing very hard, and the AFP proudly announced, "Oh, we've cracked down on a pedo ring. It's disgusting. We'll deal with these people." That was smoke and mirrors. It was complete bollocks to persuade the average punter that the AFP is doing the job. The AFP's right into it. And I told this story before, but forgive me if I tell it again. They're into all sorts of nefarious activities. And this goes back a few years, and it's in a book by Clive Small, former Assistant Commissioner for New South Wales Police. And forgive me if I repeat myself, but you never know the new people that are listening in. But the Carabinieri, which is one of the police arms in in Italy, were arranging a global sting against the 'Ndrangheta, which is the Calabrian mafia. And they communicated with the AFP and said, look, this is part of the gig. You've got a big Ndrangheta problem in Australia. You've got to be part of this global sting. And they contact the United States and other countries. The Australian Federal Police did not even reply to the communications. Now, what does that tell you about our Australian Federal Police? And do you think it's changed? Really?
No, not a bit.
There you go.
Not a bit.
And so this is the level of penetration of Masonic filth in this country. They control the country. Every aspect. There is not one aspect of this country that is not controlled, from the gay movement to the unions, to big business, to the judiciary, the polity, the military, the constabulary, academia, media, name it. It's all controlled by them. And so up until this point in history, we would never have got this far. So what might have changed that we can actually get this far in attacking the most egregious collection of evil people that you can imagine? And this goes back to Q. This goes back to everything else that we're talking about. It is a big jigsaw puzzle. And if you sit back far enough, you see the big movements.
Yep. And that's why when little things happen through the week, people like ourselves see it, and I think that's why people like you guys who are watching us watch us, because there are some of us who do see it, and we're happy to show you and tell you it's not meant to be hidden from you. It has been, and some of us have been able to break through and see. And I'm not saying that I see it all, certainly don't, but thankfully the community builds. Everybody speaks to each other. We teach each other what to look for. It's a really great community that works together, which really is the crux of what we're all talking about. We all have to start our own local communities. We've all got to work together to beat this, because it's only with knowledge that we are going to be able to win this fight, isn't it?
And look, if we get whacked, so be it. This is a war, folks. Every soldier goes off to war thinking they'll come back. Not everybody does. You got to understand it. This is a genuine war. There is a real risk. That's why I say A1's, the special ops of political parties. This isn't turn up on election day, hand out a how to vote card. No. We expect a whole lot more from people, because that's the only way we can win. Listen, there's one last thing I'd like to raise. Let's finish with a smile. Apparently, Australian medical people are now getting trained up for anal testing for monkeypox. So there you are, folks. Line up for your anal testing for monkeypox. This is your government and your tax dollars at work.
That is an outstanding development, and I can't think of a better way to end tonight's broadcast.
It's been a fun week, Carl. Oh, man.
God almighty. Anal testing for monkeypox.
Sounds like a pain in the ass.
I'm crying. Yeah, well, that'll be the next thing, pig's ass testing, but I'm not sure exactly what they'll be testing for with that. Rick, I'm really excited. Next week, we get to take it to the people live on the Gold Coast at the Croatia Club. People, if you haven't got your tickets yet, rewatch the ticker. Sticky Tickets is the place to go and get it. stickytickets.com.au. There is a number there, but if you type in the search bar, you'll find us. Looking forward to having many people turn up on the Gold Coast. And if you've got a question, by all means, come prepared. We're going to get you to write those questions down so you don't forget what it is when you're stuck in front of the camera and you get all starstruck when Mr. Bosi appears in front of you. So get there early. We're 6:30 for a 7 o'clock start. Rick will be on about 7:30, and we'll be away with our very first live audience. I'm really looking forward to it, Rick. Thank you very much for taking the time. Everything's okay with Rio? Life at home goes well with the girls?
Oh yeah, no, we're all good. Rio's over the worst of it. She's bounced back. She's an absolute. She's a blessing from God. There's not a sliver of light between us. She's just brilliant. She really is. And remember, please, the Butterfly Circus. Watch the Butterfly Circus tonight. Bring your tissues with you.
Very good. All right, Rick, thank you very much for spending another Nothing But the Truth Tuesday with us here. Well, I'm sorry for the delay getting it going. I'm really glad you stuck with it and we got it all out eventually. It's great. So thanks again. Look forward to catching you again next week from the Gold Coast.
You bet. See you, mate.
Cheers, mate.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!